Nice Jays.
We'll let Coach start off with a quick opening statement, then we'll open it up for questions. So.
How are y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. No, it's good to be back. Getting through recruiting and getting started, actually getting to work with the team. I actually get to be a coach now, so it's been really fun for me the last week and a half to get back around the players and start what is the beginning of a lot of work that we have to do to try to get the team where we want it to be. So excited to be back in Orlando and enjoying it already.
Coach, Brandon Hellway with UCFsports.com. Welcome back to
Thank
UCF.
You.
Does it feel familiar? I know you were gone a few years, but just coming back after being here for 2 months, does it kind of feel like you never left, or kind of what are the emotions being back at UCF?
Yeah, it's a little of both. It felt weird being back, but strangely familiar too. It's kind of surreal. You walk into the office and they rearranged it, but it was the same thing. And it's amazing to me how much UCF has grown through a lot of hard work from a lot of people, and just seeing the natural growth of UCF. Really appreciate the administration and the work they've done to get us in the position we're in. But as much as has changed, there's things that stay the same too. And I'm sitting here in this indoor and it feels like I never left.
Scott, when you, the first couple weeks that you got here, how much of that was just kind of catching your breath, getting caught up with everything? I know a lot of former players were in your office trying to talk to you and stuff like that. What was that what was the first couple of weeks of you being on the job? What was that like for you?
The first 5 weeks was intense. There was no catching up. In this era of college football, you land and immediately have to start putting a team together in the transfer portal. So my life was 6 in the morning till midnight and falling asleep with my phone in my hand for 5 weeks just to try to get a team put together. I think we did a really good job of that, and looking forward to working with the kids we have on the team that have been here and that are new, and seeing what we have and starting to teach them scheme, start to teach them our terminology, kind of our strategy for how we're going to win. And that process has started now that the portal's closed, and the last couple weeks have been fun.
Coach, obviously you mentioned being on the recruiting trail. You got an awful lot of offensive linemen. It feels like that you're hearing about with announcements and things. I don't know what particulars you can and can't get into, but what can you say thus far that recruiting move, what has this done to kind of the identity of what this team is so far?
Well, we need players at every position, obviously, but I don't think you win unless you have good players in the trenches on both sides. We're lucky to be in Orlando, Florida. There's so much talent around here, and we want to keep as much of the Florida talent right here as we can. Going around, I think kids' preference would be to stay close to home and play. Now that we're in the Big 12, this is big-time football right in the middle of Florida. And we're going to tap into that as much as we can. Obviously, with the roster issues we had when I first got the job, we had a lot of spots to fill and a lot of people to recruit, and we worked hard at it. Our emphasis is probably going to be on the big guys to make sure that we're holding our own in the trenches, so that the guys with speed that are all around here can do their thing.
Coach Trey Strelko, Sons of UCF, what were those conversations like with guys that have decided to stay and want to buy into what you're bringing?
There were some conversations. I don't think everyone was completely happy, and honestly, in this era of college football, everybody has a choice to make every year. And we just have to be comfortable with the fact, even though no one likes it, that you're going to be coaching pretty much an entirely different team every year. You're going to keep some pieces, but the collective of the team is going to change year by year. So you're really building a one-year team and trying to keep as many of the pieces from the last team as you can. We had some that wanted to stay and take advantage of the new opportunity here, and some that didn't. But you're just going to have to go out and fill those spots when you lose one. And the guys that were here really got some good feedback from them. What I've really appreciated about those guys is they want to work and they want to be pushed and they want to be coached. And we're pushing them right now, particularly in the weight room and out here on the field. The guys are really rising to that. They're working their butts off, and I'm really impressed with the work ethic and the desire to change things and get better.
Coach, tell us about the process and how you fit on your staff. I know you told Mark Meadows earlier this week you saw a few more pieces you want to add on, but tell us how you got to the guys that you want there.
Yeah, I've said this a couple times, but usually when you're up for these jobs, you kind of have the most of your staff kind of picked out already. You know who you're going to hire in these for your assistant coaches when you get these jobs. I wasn't really hunting for a job, and it just so happened that probably the one job that I would have taken in college opened up, and I came back to Orlando. My wife and I were excited about that, to raise our kids here, to put our feet down here for a while and make this home again. But I didn't have a staff really picked out and ready to go. And I think in some ways that was beneficial, because it kind of pushed me to interview other people and kind of get outside the box and look for some guys that I didn't know personally before. And really happy with where we ended up. And my experience with quite a few of those guys early on has been really positive.
Coach, talk about filling out the staff. Obviously, you brought in former UCF quarterback Mackenzie Milton onto the quarterback's room. Talk about that process when you knew he was a guy for the job, and you said he has a chance to be a superstar coach in this conference in football.
Yeah, coaching is a tough business, and really the hardest part about it is getting the first job. If you get that job, all you have to do is kind of bloom where you've been planted and do the best job you can there, and then things go upward and onward from there. Really happy to give KZ his first full-time job, but I said this to Mark, I wouldn't have hired him just because he was my quarterback and I care about him, or he played at UCF. My experience with him was really positive, and I think he's going to be a really good coach. So excited to give him his first shot at running his room, and we'll be right there alongside him to make sure it's successful.
What qualities do you see from him that makes him impressive? What gives you that impression?
If you really boil down coaching, it really, in my opinion, comes down to three things. Making a relationship with the players so that they trust you, and being able to relate to them helps. Genuinely caring about them is probably the key to that. Kids know whether you care about them or not. Once you have that relationship, you have to know what you're talking about, so you have to be knowledgeable. And then the third thing is you have to be able to communicate it clearly. And if kids know you care about them and you know your stuff and you're telling them exactly what to do, those are kind of the marks of a good coach, and I think KZ will be good at all three.
Coach, on topic of the coaching staff, as far as a position coach standpoint, one retained from the last staff and Mark on the defensive line. Just what is it like being in and what made you decide to keep them?
The first time I came, I kept two, Sean Beckton and Travis Fisher, and really that comes down to when you get your feet on the ground, asking a lot of questions and kind of finding out what the players think, what other people around the program think. And I got nothing but kind of good reviews about Kmart. He's been awesome in my short time here, and I got to give him a lot of credit. He did a lot of work to make sure that we kept the core of the team from last year together, and especially in this era of transfer portal, when a team loses a coach, a lot of those guys can jet out of there pretty fast, and Kmart did a good job holding all that together. So excited to work with him, and he's been great so far.
Scott, what is your thought process when it comes to offense? I think I asked you about UCF fast, but are you going to be the primary play caller? I mean, what's the kind of, how are you going to break maybe things up when it comes to putting together your offense?
Yeah, it's going to be a collaboration, obviously. We have a lot of smart guys in the offensive staff room and guys that have seen a lot of football. Our plan right now is for me to call it, and I'll get a lot of assistance from a lot of guys, but I want to be the one making the play calls, and that's going to be with a lot of help from a lot of people.
What does Steve provide for you and helping that with the offense as your offensive coordinator?
Well, he's been an offensive coordinator and called it at two different places. He's also seen some other styles of football in some places he's been, and he knows our system inside and out from his time with me. So he's one of the few guys I've been around that kind of sees the game the same way as I do, and doesn't just run plays but looks for opportunities and ideas to help make plays work. So I've known from being around him that he's got a chance to be really good in the coaching profession. He already has been, and to help me as much as anybody else because of his knowledge.
Coach, you had Taven Jackson through the transfer portal. You offered him in high school. What have you seen from his development throughout college, and what are you excited about with him coming here?
Yeah, I want to be careful to talk about specific guys too much right now and not try to hide anything. It's just too early. We're excited to have Tay along with all the other quarterbacks that we have. We've had a few meetings with guys where we're starting to install offense and very little interaction with them so far. Obviously, I was a fan of his going back to when we recruited him out of high school, and he's going to have a really good opportunity, just like everybody else here, to show what he can do and try to earn his job and earn a spot.
Coach,
Coach,
Alex Grinch, obviously defensive coordinator. Was that a coach you had a pre-existing relationship with? Just how did you come to that hire, and why did you think he was the perfect fit?
No, I knew Alex and have coached against him several times. Had trouble with him, and we were talking about it. We had some battles, and he won a couple, and we won some. And I think the biggest thing for me was just the personality fit. And sometimes you're successful in this business. Sometimes it doesn't go the way you want. Sometimes it's your fault. Sometimes it's not. And I think I can really relate to Alex's career. At one time, he was probably the hottest defensive coordinator in the country, and he went to another place where it didn't go quite as well, and I don't think that was necessarily all his fault. And what I know I'm getting is a really good guy that's been around a lot of football and has been successful and has a chip on his shoulder to take advantage of another opportunity. And I think the parallel of that with my career makes us a good fit together.
Coach, you mentioned the breakneck pace with which you had to catch up. What do you feel like was the biggest adjustment you had to make in this NIL era of college football here?
Probably the biggest adjustment was, you land in Orlando on campus, or if you get one of these jobs wherever you are, and I didn't have a list. I didn't have recruits. I didn't have a list of guys in the portal. I didn't have an idea where to go, and no real staff built out to help you. A transition in the recruiting department that we had to solve real fast. So, I felt like when I was spending time hiring assistants, I was taken away from time trying to get players and build a team. But conversely, every time that you hired somebody, you had somebody else to help you with the recruiting. So it was just a busy time. Hopefully I'll never have to go through that again, because it was a lot. But we just kept chopping wood and getting some guys hired and getting some people on visits and evaluating players and making phone calls and trying to build the whole thing out as well as we could in 5 weeks.
And a quick follow-up with that too. They've kind of compared NIL to NFL free agency in a way. Your time in the NFL with Coach McVay and that organization, has that helped you kind of get accustomed to the NIL world in a way?
I don't want to say anything controversial, but I look forward to a time when this is like NFL free agency. There are some similarities. I think you're working with a budget or a salary cap, and you're trying to build the best team you can with those resources. The downside is contracts don't matter. Kids saying they're going to come doesn't matter. It's a free-for-all. At least in the NFL, when someone signs a 1, 2, 3 year contract, they're your player for 1, 2, 3 years. Just the volatility of this and the ability to have things change and have kids change their mind. It's a revolving door. And just when you think you have a piece plugged in, you lose that piece and you have to go out and get another one. And I hope eventually we get to a point where the parameters that exist with NFL free agency exist with this. It'll make it a lot easier.
Coach, compared to the last time you were here at UCF, what would you say has been the biggest adjustment for you? Was it NIL? Was it transfer? Was it the coaches just being back in Orlando? What would you say was the biggest adjustment for you?
Yeah, I think probably that was. I'm a pretty quick study, but I had to learn really fast how to get things done in this new era of recruiting. It's really settled down now. Now that that's done and we have a team, now we just get to be football coaches again and leaders again. And that's the part that I really enjoy. That's the thing that I think our coaching staff is good at. So we're kind of back to being coaches now until after spring, and the spring portal hits again, and then we'll have to be on our toes again.
That was the next question I had, is kind of how nice is that now that the team's in place, the coaches are in place, how nice is that that's all there? What are the next next few weeks kind of look like?
Well, just trying to build everything out. There's just a mountain of stuff. I mean, you have to have team mantras and offensive and defensive terminology, and not just with the players, but as we have a new staff together, we have to get together and talk about what we're going to be, what we're going to call things, what we're going to run, what our adjustments are, what our signals are. So it's really building it from scratch. It's good to have guys like, for me, guys like Steve Cooper and Sean Beckton that have been in our system before and can help with that. But there's just a lot of ground to cover. You know, this is a 4-8 football team last year. We have high hopes, but we have a lot of work to do to get where we want. And when you're installing this stuff for the first time, there's just a process you have to go through to get everybody to learn what we're doing, what we're all about, and how we're going to get there.
Coach, to that point, obviously you just said there's a lot to be done. What to you would be a successful spring for this team and for this coaching staff?
Well, spring's about competition for me. You know, teaching for us from coach's standpoint, and then competition for the kids. And, you know, the quicker guys learn, the better chance they have of being successful on the field. And as much as we're competing with one another, I want it to be a team-based mentality, so guys are caring about each other. And, you know, that's a hard thing to balance, so that's going to take good leadership, good communication from the coaching staff. And, you know, we're not really sure what we have yet until we get them out on the field and see, so it's hard to answer questions about personnel. But the guys are going to get a chance to prove that. And like I said, I've been really impressed with the work ethic and the attentiveness to try to learn things and move this in a positive direction.
Scott, how does your time in the NFL? I know Sean McVay talked a little bit about how much you appreciated your how you were able to handle things in the NFL. What did you take from that time in the NFL that you want to maybe transfer over into your coaching style now with the second time around with this team?
You know, I think anytime you think you know everything, then you're done learning. You know, I went into that time out in LA with an open mind and trying to just soak in as much as I could. There's a lot of things that I think I'll adjust, having been there and seen that. Our approach to practice, our approach to time off, our approach to the staff. And, you know, it's not like I'm going to be a different person, but I think anytime you're around somebody that's smart and a really good organization or team, there's things that you pick up along the way that you integrate with what you've already been doing to try to make you better. And he's certainly one of the best to do it and one of the smartest guys I've been around. So definitely a lot of things that I was able to pick up out there.
You spoke a little bit about McKenzie earlier. How has your relationship with him evolved or changed from recruiting him as an 18-year-old kid from Hawaii all the way across the country to coaching him for a couple of years to now working on the same staff together?
Well, I think anytime you're around somebody and then they leave and then years later you get back around them, I think the key for me and probably for UCF and its fans is to see him as a grown-up and a coach now and not who he was. You know, he's not the same person he was 8 years ago, neither am I, neither are you. And, you know, he's not a sophomore from Hawaii that's out flipping options over his right shoulder anymore and doing crazy things on the field. God bless him. Most of them turned out good. He's a grown-up now, and that's the way I see him. I've seen his growth kind of from afar for a while, and you know, I think it's important for me to make sure, and UCF fans too, to make sure and look at him as the person he is now and not the hero that played on the field.
Coach, you've got a number of quarterbacks with off-field experience this year. What are you looking for from that position?
For quarterback?
Yeah.
You know, first the guy's got to learn. I'm impressed with what we have in the room from that standpoint, and that's really all I can speak to right now. Is the guys have been very deliberate about trying to get in and make sure that they're getting up to speed on what we're going to ask them to do. But there's a lot of ground to cover. You know, the quarterback's got to be the leader on the field. He's got to be the most knowledgeable guy on the field. He's got to know what all 11 are doing and idea of what defenses are doing, and there's a lot of teaching that goes into that. I think when you get some veteran guys like we have, some of that's already been taught and ingrained in them. So hopefully that makes it go a little faster. But I suppose the number one characteristic is somebody that's just a playmaker and finds a way to win regardless of the situation.
Coach, when we've talked to guys from the 16-17 era, they rave about Zach Duvall and how he pushed them beyond what they thought they could do. What does he bring to the team?
I think Zach's such a good fit for here. And I've been reminded of that, having watched a few weeks of guys training in the weight room again. You know, Florida is full of talented athletes that can really run. when you take those type of athletes and put them in a situation where they're eating well and getting good nutrition and really busting their hump in the weight room to get stronger, then you're taking fast guys and making them faster and stronger. And conversely, if you don't have that type of speed and twitch and athletic ability, then you're just making strong guys stronger and they still can't run. So the fit down here, I think, is great. And I'm grateful for the work that him and Andrew and Sean Beckton Jr. and the rest of the guys in the weight room are doing with the team. But again, I got to compliment the team. We're working them right now, and the kids are embracing it and loving it. We haven't had one kid miss a workout or be late to a workout, and I can't tell you how many kids have come up to me and told me how glad they are that we're pushing them. And when I say pushing them, they're working. So seeing that kind of effort from the guys and appreciation for making them do hard things, that speaks a lot about the character of the guys.
Coach, your offense was UCF fast the first time you were here. I know offenses evolve, coaches evolve. How would you describe what your offensive philosophy will be going forward?
We're going to do whatever the best thing is to win, to move the ball and win. And I suppose age brings you wisdom if you're always learning. And I think there's going to be times when we look a lot like we did when I was here the first time. Maybe there'll be some times when we won't, but a lot of that's going to depend on what we see in spring ball and what kind of team we have. A lot of it's going to depend on who we're playing and the style of the league. And we're not going to be doggedly committed to any one style. I want to be able to be flexible enough to do the things that it takes to give us the best chance to win week in and week out.
Coach, we talked a lot about offense. What's kind of been the area of focus for defense recruiting-wise, and if there's anything in particular about the philosophy on that side you could talk about?
Yeah, again, without talking about our personnel much, because I don't know much yet, I think Kenny did a really good job keeping the team together, particularly on the defensive line. So I don't think that was necessarily one of our priorities. We added a couple pieces there that I'm excited about. I think majority of the time we spent in recruiting on defense was probably at linebacker and in the defensive secondary. Excited about the pieces we have there too, and some of the guys that were already here. So again, I'll be able to comment more on personnel after I actually have an idea what these guys can do.
Coach, you mentioned recruiting. You've got a good balance of older and younger players in this portal, but I know you mentioned in your introductory press conference that you want to target younger players and grow them naturally in the system and in the program. How is that going to affect the way, in terms of putting these guys on the field and recruiting for the future?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, I would rather recruit young and develop in-house. The college football right now kind of makes that hard, and what really made that hard for us was having, I think, about 50 players and needing 85 scholarship players. With the recruiting window for high school players for the most part over after December signing day. So we were kind of in a position where we had to go out and fill those spots with guys that are veteran and in the portal. Going forward, we'll try to find the right balance between recruiting young people and developing them and filling holes with the portal. What I said in the press conference is what we want to be, and we'll have to adjust off that as much as we need to make sure we have a good product on the field.
Coach, the first time you were here, you always have to fight for recognition, especially in that 17-year, college football playoff was not something that you had access to. Now UCF is a member of the Big 12. Just kind of talk about how that transition now coming back and being able to play with the best.
Yeah, I think it's great. Again, the trajectory of UCF and UCF athletics has been amazing to me. Going back to when Coach Beck played, I think they were in the MAC, 1AA and in the MAC and in the American, and now we got a seat at the big boy table now. And that's a challenge. We got work to do to make sure that we're competitive and first, and then hopefully we can go beyond that. But there's no reason that we can't recruit as well as anybody else in Florida and give people the opportunity to play in the Big 12. I think that alone is going to springboard our ability to get even better players, and then it's up to us to make sure that we're working hard enough to be competitive and try to win in the league.
Piggybacking off of that, what kind of advantage is it to have a GM, Terry Mohajir, that used to be on the College Football Playoff Committee to kind of help advise and guide the program?
Yeah, Terry's been great. I'm so grateful to have an AD that's on my side and working alongside me. When you're in the other situation, it's really difficult, and it's really debilitating, to be honest with you, when you feel like you're working and you don't have somebody right there alongside with you. Terry and I are on the same page. He's trying to give us everything that he can to be successful, and it's a good partnership, and I'm grateful to him.
Trips to Provo, Lubbock, you've got Bill Belichick in North Carolina coming to town. What's your reaction to the schedule as it is unveiled?
It's a fun schedule. We got our work cut out for us. We're taking off from a point that I don't think anybody was happy with last year's results. That being said, I think a few plays, watching the tape, a few plays go different, and UCF wins 7 or 8 games last year. So we got our work cut out for us. The league is tough. I think top to bottom, there's so much parity in the league, having watched the tape now, that if you play well and execute well, you're going to have a chance in every game, but every team can beat you. So we're excited for that opportunity, but it looks like a fun schedule. And we'll start talking about to the players right away about not being cold in Provo in November. We'll get their mind right.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Coach.
Appreciate it.
We'll get started with our offensive assistants here in a few minutes.